his mom, right?
Yeah.
You're this one's mom? I was just looking at your son's chart. He has, what do they call it? Prader-Willi syndrome?
Wait, what? What's that?
Yeah, I'll show you. See how he's not as cute as the other babies? He kind of looks like a rag doll, kind of sickly. You notice it too. Yeah.
He's beautiful, thank you very much.
Yeah, he definitely has a disorder. You don't need to be so rude to me. I'm a very important nurse, and I have lots of things to do. But I did do something nice. Here's a copy about the syndrome. There you go.
Okay, well, what does this mean? There's lots of big words.
I didn't get a lunch break, so you read that over, and then you can ask me a couple questions when you're done.
What does this mean for our life? What does this mean for him?
I don't know. I think it talks about it right here. Yeah.
You're the first one to come.
I gotta go. Listen, that's my only copy. Can you read it any faster? Alright, I think someone might be in later to check in on him. I'm gonna leave the snacks here because I know I'm gonna be back. Alright.
Hi, Jordan. I'm Rhiannon. I'm the nurse today. This must be Connor.
Yeah, he doesn't look wrong, does he?
No, he doesn't.
So this horrible nurse came in and told me that my son has this Willie syndrome and that he looks wrong and...
Okay. So what did she tell you about the condition?
She said he looked ugly. That's all she said.
Okay. Well, I have some resources for you. We can go through it, and I'll get the genetic counselor.
Okay.
He can talk to you more about the syndrome and what you're going to expect
Okay.
when he develops into childhood and adulthood.
Yeah.
So here you go.
Can I keep this?
Of course you can keep it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have any questions?
What does this mean? Is there anyone that will help? Because it's just us.
Yes, yeah, definitely. We'll give you some resources for you and your family. Like I said, the genetic counselor can talk to you more about the syndrome and the doctor as well. There is a good outcome for your baby. So yeah, we'll talk more. I'll get the genetic counselor, okay?
Okay, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Do you need anything else?
Can you just make sure you bring back some more of these or something like
Of
this more
course,
information?
of course.
Thank you so
You're welcome.
much.
You're welcome. You're not alone.
Yeah?
Hi Jordan, my name is Patrick. I'm a genetic counselor here at the hospital. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Not bad. I heard from the nurse you had some questions regards to your child.
Yeah, what is this Willie syndrome?
It is Prader-Willi syndrome, and it was diagnosed genetically after the child was born. Typically, according to Journal of Pediatrics, what you see is these children have a low birth weight. They have trouble feeding. They have hypogonadism, and they have really bad. It's called hypotonia, which is like where their limbs are kind of limp. They can't really hold their head up, and they kind of just lay there.
So what the other nurse said he looked like a rag doll.
I wouldn't go quite that extreme, but yes, it does have that effect of where they just they can't support their own body weight.
Okay. I know that he's kind of small. Will he stay small?
Once he hits puberty, he'll get a voracious appetite, and basically it's called hyperphagia, and he'll eat and eat and eat and eat, and they can actually hurt themselves because they don't have the control to actually stop physically usually.
Wait, do they eat until they burst?
Typically not. We actually have quite a few services, and they can help in terms of things like that. We have dietary services, psychiatric, counseling services, health groups, medical, and a list of other services to help children like this, educational as well. Typically the incident rate with this disease, or the syndrome, according to NIH, is between 1 and 15,000 and 1 in 25,000.
Okay.
And there is a higher mortality rate related to other like peripheral health disorders, so like cardiovascular disease, heart disease, diabetes type 2 usually, things like that, metabolic triad, usually revolving around how they eat and whatnot. They also are usually cognitively delayed.
Okay. So what does that mean for me?
Well, you are in good hands. The hospital, there are health services, and there's many support groups, and online, and both also like financial groups that will actually help people with this syndrome,
Okay.
and they'll offer a full list of services like I listed before. But typically, like I said, like it's about 3% incident rate of death compared to 1% of the general population. But they do typically make it farther into life than some other syndromes.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Well, will I have any support? Because I have to work and I have to take care of him, and I don't know, that seems like a lot of appointments.
It is quite a heavy load. There are a lot involved with your child's care, but there's a lot of things that we can help you with. Like I said before, like there's support groups, there's doctors, physicians, psychiatrists, counselors, things like that nature that can help you out, dietitians especially.
Okay.
Would you want these forms or not? I
Oh,
have these,
yes,
like, the whole
please.
list is both the NIH and the pediatrics, general pediatrics recommendations for children with this disorder.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Anything else?
Oh, I think this is a lot.
All right, well, if you need anything else, just let me know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Describe the genetic condition, incidence, mortality, and morbidity. Describe its onset, symptoms, and impact.
So, Prader-Willis syndrome is a deletion of the 15th chromosome. It basically expresses itself through hypotonia, low birth weight, problems feeding, and hypogonadism. It has a incidence of 1 in 15,000 to 1 in 25,000. Death rate of about 3% in the normal population as compared to 1% normal 3% in its population compared to 1% in the population according to NIH. According to the Journal of Pediatrics, you see this syndrome kind of flip in adolescents where they begin to eat heavily, and the onset is basically at birth.
The mother in this story said she felt alone and scared and that the nursing staff didn't discuss the diagnosis with her. What might be some of the reasons for this? Are there any guidelines for delivering bad news that exist locally or are defined by your professional body?
Okay, so I think that some of the reasons the nursing staff didn't address the mother is because sometimes after delivering bad news, nurses may feel uncomfortable addressing the mother, that they'll further upset her, that they lack the knowledge about the diagnosis. And then some people worry that they don't know what to say, so they'll kind of give her false hope and be like, oh, it's all right, like you're going to be okay, when we really are not particularly sure about that. Are there any professional guidelines? There are no professional guidelines like that explain it for everyone. Kind of each hospital has their own sort of policy. But I did find an approach that has been used and has been successful. So you start with the word spikes, and then each letter corresponds with a way to deliver the bad news. Okay, I'm going to begin now and telling you what they all mean. S. S means setting up for the interview. You're going to want a quiet space and a private space. P. Perception. You want to assess the family's or the patient's knowledge of their diagnosis before you say anything. So before you tell, ask. The I is for invitation, and that sounds kind of silly, but you want to ask the patient or family member if they want to know more, because some people don't, and you have to respect that. So you can ask them if they would like to know more about the diagnosis. K. K stands for knowledge. So you can, after you ask, you invite the information. Then you're going to give the information. Okay? You also want to warn them before bad news. Don't just say it. Say unfortunately, or I wish I had something different to say, or whatever. E stands for emotions. You're going to want to address the family's emotions because they're going to have a wide range of them: shock, fear, potentially relief. So give the information, let the family respond, and then you address their emotions. Finally, S stands for summary, which is pretty self-explanatory. So you just want to go over what you said and make sure they understand, or if they have any more questions. So if you have to deliver bad news in the future, you should consider using spikes. Okay, bye.
Thanks, Madeline.
What do you think the lived experience of this condition is like for the affected patient and his or her family? How do you think this condition affects parents, siblings, grandparents?
Well, I imagine life with any type of abnormality is difficult, not just for the affected, but for that person's family and loved ones. As a parent, you have a vision and a dream for your child. You see them as beautiful, healthy, happy, and intelligent. You dream your child has the power to overcome all the inadequacies and failures that you yourself were unable to do. In your child, you see hope and promise. The dream of an unrealistic and difficult expectation to come to terms with, and unfortunately, some parents can never get over the fantasy of a perfect child, and that's where the real struggle begins. A child born with Prader-Willi syndrome will face several challenges, and so will their loved ones. The first challenge is recognizing that the child has a genetic condition, and that condition will require that the entire family becomes educated about it. The need for education on how to care for this child can be frightening and intimidating to a family. For most of us, caring for a child is something that we just take for granted, and we take it for granted because it's something we've never had to think about. When with a special needs child, you can't just take that care for granted. Families that have special needs children know that the adjustment is not without challenges and that it takes a great deal of patience and time to get used to. A person with Prader-Willi syndrome can grow up and have many of the same successes and accomplishments that their normal peers do. However, a person with Prader-Willi syndrome will always have an enormous struggle with food and will need a great deal of support and help dealing with their insatiable appetite. Family members will also struggle with having to deny a loved one with Prader-Willi food. In many cultures, the act of sharing food is a way of expressing love and comfort, and I imagine it would be difficult and painful to deny a loved one of food and deny him of that expression of love and comfort. Fortunately, there are a lot of resources out there to support individuals with Prader-Willi and their families, and all we can do as nurses and healthcare professionals is to encourage those families to use those resources. Okay. How would you find further credible, reliable information about this condition? Where would you find information suitable for parents?
To find reliable information about this condition, I would definitely go to the hospital resources, any education and teaching materials that are specific to that disorder. Also, nutrition and dietary, PT and OT, and genetic counselors. Also, the National Institute of Health and the National Organization of Rare Disorders. Those two websites are very credible. And then information suitable for parents. The PWS Association has links and resources for education and educators, providers, and parents and families. They have handouts on young child with PWS, and they also have any interventions that increase comfort and activity. They also provide chapters and affiliated organizations. So like they have definite local chapters that parents can have for that. And then PWSA of Wisconsin, I think that's a really credible resource for parents. They have annual social events and support meetings for caregivers of children and adults with PWS. They have general assistance. The board of directors selectively donates to those with PWS and those who support them in areas that help them manage some cost or some extra costs they may have that relates to their disability. They have information packets. There's a packet of hope for families and individuals with a new diagnosis of PWS. They have education packets for educators and health packets for healthcare providers. And they also have an area for nutrition. They give calorie counts and breakdowns of nutrients. And they also have a website or a webpage that gives you different recipes. They also have, so there's another one, it's International Prader-Willi Syndrome Organization. They have information for new parents, dietary management for a child with this condition according to age, and they describe how the diet changes while the child develops. They explain the food exchange system for nutrition. They give parents stories and what they experienced and how they coped and handled the different challenges. They also talk about why obesity is a concern, and they give support for families, information for medical and educational specialists. It's a scientific and medical advisory board for scientific and medical support. So I think those three sources are really great. It's the PWS Association, the PWSA of Wisconsin, and the International Prader-Willi Syndrome Organization.
Thank you. Okay, Jordan. Imagine that you are teaching undergrad nursing students. In what areas of the curriculum could you help students to develop competence in supporting members with a genetic condition?
Well, first, I think it's really important in our physical assessment class to really know the features of these genetic conditions. Like, for example, at birth, children with Prader-Willi syndrome typically have the ragdoll floppy appearance and almond-shaped eyes. But prior to birth, I think that it should be really enforced for the students to obtain a detailed family history, construct a pedigree, assess and analyze for risk factors that are both hereditary and modifiable, then give a lot of support to these individuals and let them know about resources available. And finally, just sort of teaching the parents and the children sort of some anticipatory guidance for what to expect with developmental milestones, with physical ability, and yeah, also I think that it's really important for our faculty to sort of promote and say, yeah, there is an area of nursing called genetics nursing, and that is an area where you can get your advanced degree in.
Great. Thank you.